September 27th, 1941. Baltimore Harbor. The morning is damp, gulls circling over gray water as a new hull looms against the skyline. She is not sleek, not graceful, but blocky and plain. The first of her kind. The crowd calls her the SS Patrick Henry. Reporters scratch into notepads, cameras whir. Henry J. Kaiser, the construction magnate with a builder's stare, stands just off the slipway, his eyes locked on the steel bulk as the christening bottle shatters. From Berlin, a Kriegsmarine liaison cables home dismissively. Mass production of merchant hulls? Unserious, primitive. Admiral Erich Raeder, commander-in-chief of the German Navy, reads the message and reportedly scoffs, certain that no assembly line approach could outpace torpedoes. They call these hulls ugly ducklings. To them, the very idea is comedy, a clumsy barge pretending to be a ship. What they fail to see, here in this moment, is the gear shift beginning inside America's industrial engine. Floodlights rake across steel at night in the Kaiser yards on the West Coast. Sparks erupt as welders cut, hammer, seal. The sound is relentless, rivet guns rattling like typewriters at war speed. At the same time, across the Atlantic, the contrast is sharp. Inside the damp pens of Lorient, France, German U-boats sit in their reinforced concrete coffins. The smell of diesel hangs heavy, bilge water dripping in hollow rhythm. In one world, molten metal is flowing into molds, curved sections of hull sliding down tracks as if they were auto parts. In the other, wolf packs are being briefed to hunt, their commanders still convinced that steel plate rolled in American yards will never reach the sea intact. Two landscapes, one illuminated in orange flame, the other drowned in cold shadow. The difference between construction and destruction. Numbers tell the real story. Britain, fighting alone on the Western Front of the war until the Soviets entered, is bleeding shipping at catastrophic rates. Every year, the island requires 15 million tons of imported cargo just to survive. Grain, fuel, munitions. Without it, factories grind to a halt and civilians starve. A single Liberty ship, once operational, carries 10,000 tons of freight. Simple multiplication makes the picture clear. 100 ships equal 1 million tons. 1,000 ships, 10 million tons. Enough to offset almost an entire year of British wheat imports or to move the petroleum reserves that keep RAF Spitfires aloft. For the German Naval Command, the arithmetic should have been chilling. But in 1941, they are blinded by tradition. They cannot imagine an ocean filled with these anonymous hulls, so slow, so many, that no torpedo count could balance the scales. Across Washington in late 1941, planning rooms hum like power plants. The United States Maritime Commission sketches targets on chalkboards. 2,000, maybe more, of these new cargo carriers. The ink dries on contracts before shipyard land is even cleared. British intelligence cables arrive daily, reporting sinkings in brutal tallies. 600,000 tons of merchant shipping lost in a single month of 1942. British Admiralty records. The math is simple, the stakes not. If those losses continue, Britain's lifeline will snap. So the Americans begin their counterstroke not at sea, but in the blueprints. Factories surge awake. In Portland, Oregon, acres of farmland are carved into dry docks. In Richmond, California, entire neighborhoods vanish beneath the sprawl of Kaiser's yard. At night, the skyline glows with welding arcs, brighter than neon. The process is stripped to its elements, prefabrication. Instead of building a ship like a cathedral, brick by brick, workers slice the hull into giant pieces, bow sections, stern blocks, midship assemblies, then haul them into place with cranes. Like a machine shop assembling a locomotive, the parts arrive pre-cut, rivets replaced with weld seams. Bletchley Park listens in silence thousands of miles away. Codebreakers intercepting Wolfpack traffic, piecing together convoy losses on maps. The two systems, American steel and British signals intelligence, converge into a strategy of endurance. On the slipways, the design looks crude. 441 feet long, a slab-sided profile, and a blunt prow that drives through waves without grace. But inside, the specifications are functional. A triple-expansion steam engine, 7,200 horsepower, designed in 1890s Britain but resurrected here for reliability. 11 knots maximum speed. No elegance, just certainty. Cargo space, 10,800 deadweight tons. A crew of around 40 sailors, sometimes reinforced with naval armed guards to man the single 4-inch deck gun and a handful of anti-aircraft weapons. Cost just over $2 million per hull. The figures are not glamorous, but they are reproducible. The labor is the secret weapon. Where once only trained shipwrights worked, now welders in their 20s and 60s, many of them women, clock in around the clock. Their gloves smell of scorched leather, their faces lit by the blue flare of torches. A ship is no longer handcrafted, it is manufactured. A hull section can weigh 250 tons, hoisted into place in hours. By the end of 1942, production speed will compress so much that one vessel, the Robert E. Peary, will be launched in 4 days, 15 hours, and 30 minutes. To German naval planners, such claims seem like propaganda. To workers on the ground, it is muscle memory and shift work, steel moving as fast as a conveyor belt. Then the Atlantic swallows them. Convoys form, liberty ships, tankers, tramps, all blacked out at night, escorted by destroyers straining to hear sonar echoes. The year is 1942, and wolfpacks surge. In darkness, across endless swells, the first liberty ships steam toward Britain. Their decks glisten with spray, their engines churn at a steady rhythm, pistons hammering like the pulse of a giant machine. From periscopes, German eyes track them. The first contact is merciless. Torpedoes strike amidships. Fire claws upward, steel twists. The SS Samuel Heinzelmann, carrying war supplies, is torpedoed off South Africa in July 1942, vanishing in flames. The message seems clear. These clumsy vessels are easy prey. But the numbers keep climbing. For every Liberty ship lost in the opening months, another 2 roll down the ways. The duel is no longer about elegance or tactics. It is a race between torpedo tubes and cranes. The Atlantic becomes the testing ground where German laughter begins to falter. By late 1942, the counterpunch begins to show. Destroyer escorts cut sharper wakes across the Atlantic, their radar sets glowing green in the dark, scanning for periscopes. Escort carriers, converted from merchant hulls themselves, launch wildcats that circle convoys like steel hawks. High-frequency direction finding, HF-DF, called Huff-Duff by the men, triangulates U-boat radio chatter, pinning wolf packs before they strike. Liberty ships, once naked targets, now sail shielded by layers of detection and response. Admiral Karl Dönitz notes in his war diary, November 1942, "The enemy replaces his losses faster than we can sink them. Our tactics must be reconsidered." Kriegstagebuch der Seekriegsleitung, Vollen 37. What began as commerce slaughter is becoming attrition, and attrition is a battle America can afford. Yet strain spreads through the system like cracks in armor plate. The ships themselves begin to show faults no wolfpack could imagine. Welded seams, rushed through under pressure, sometimes fail in the cold Atlantic. Steel, hardened in American mills, proves brittle at low temperatures. The SS Schenectady, launched in Portland, splits open at dockside in January 1943, its back cracked like a levered beam. Shipyard engineers scramble to add crack arresters, altering weld techniques under floodlights at midnight. Human strain is no less brutal. In Richmond Yard No. 2, men and women collapse on the job from 24-hour shifts. The smell of burnt flux and sweat hangs over the docks. Turnover is constant. Training never ends. The Liberty fleet may be endless in statistics, but each hull is borne on exhausted shoulders. Then the Atlantic reminds everyone that innovation is not invulnerability. Convoy PQ-17, July 1942, steaming from Murmansk with tanks, aircraft, and ammunition for the Soviet front. 35 merchant ships depart. Only 11 arrive. 24 are sunk by U-boats and Luftwaffe bombers, several of them Liberty ships. A survivor writes in his after-action account, "We were cargo waiting to be consumed by fire." The scale of loss horrifies Washington. Supplies intended to bolster the Red Army vanish beneath Arctic swells. German officers, reading intercepts of the disaster, feel vindicated. For all the talk of American production, here is proof. Convoys can still be gutted, lifelines severed. The Liberty ship, they argue, is still nothing more than a floating coffin. But inside that disaster lies a pattern the Germans miss. Even as Liberty ships sink, New keels are being laid down faster than the wrecks can rust. Setbacks are real, but they are not permanent. The factory gears grind forward, and the balance of arithmetic continues to tilt. Innovation arrives like an adjustment to an engine under strain. Incremental, practical, decisive. Welding crews adapt techniques, adding steel crack arresters to prevent catastrophic failures. Metallurgists recalculate alloy balances, hardening plates against the cold bite of North Atlantic waters. Shipyards alter workflows to prevent bottlenecks, parts arriving by rail with the timing of a gearbox meshing teeth. Then, in November 1942, the experiment becomes spectacle. Richmond Yard No. 2 attempts the impossible, build a Liberty ship in less than a week. Workers swarm like pistons in motion, cranes lifting, welders sealing, transport crews hauling sections in synchronized order. 4 days, 15 hours, and 30 minutes later, the Robert E. Peary slides into the water. The feat makes headlines worldwide. German naval staff monitoring foreign press is stunned. They had laughed at the ungainly design, but here is proof of scale, an empire of steel rising at machine tempo. The climax comes in 1943. U-boat production peaks. Wolfpacks expand, and yet the slaughter begins to reverse. Allied aircraft, radar-equipped and long-ranged, sweep the sea lanes. Convoys tighten their formations. Destroyer escorts dart outward with depth charges primed. Liberty ships no longer move as isolated victims, but as parts of a war machine networked across ocean space. Sinkings are still brutal. Thousands of lives lost. But the replacement curve is now unstoppable. By December 1943, U-boat sinkings exceed launches. The Liberty fleet has become a tide, and tides do not fear torpedoes. Admiral Donitz confesses privately that the enemy's material superiority has broken the back of the U-boat arm, post-war interrogation, Allied Naval Report 1945. German officers who once sneered now see their maps drown in markers of fresh hulls. The joke about ugly ducklings has dissolved into silence. When the Normandy invasion begins in June 1944, Liberty ships are the unglamorous giants that make it possible. They carry vehicles, rations, ammunition, fuel, millions of tons of it, across a hostile channel, each one a piston stroke in the vast Allied engine. Without them, divisions would starve on the beachhead. With them, the supply lines stretch from New York to Cherbourg without pause. The men aboard know their ships are fragile, slow, and always targeted. Yet they steam forward, one gray hull after another, the horizon filled with steel silhouettes. By war's end, 2,110 Liberty ships have been launched. Together they move cargo measured in hundreds of millions of tons, sustaining Britain, arming the Soviet Union, and delivering the material avalanche that crushes the Third Reich. Their loss rate is staggering, over 200 sunk by U-boats alone. But their replacement rate is relentless. The balance sheet is decisive. Where the German Navy calculated destruction, America calculated production, and production won. The aftermath is not glamorous. Many Liberty ships are scrapped within decades, some breaking apart, others rusting into anonymity. But their role is permanent in the numbers. They were not beautiful. They were not fast. They were not even durable in the way naval architects dreamed of. Yet they proved that in modern war, volume can defeat precision. The vessel mocked as a cheap coffin became the piston that drove Allied victory across the Atlantic.